It turns out that in the Olympic Games, everyone was actually competing against biochemical humans. And the United States has started causing trouble again on the issue of doping on March 26th this year. The American track and field athlete Errol Knighton was tested positive for steroids, Trenbolone in and out of competition doping test however. This guy brazenly entered the Paris Olympics and ran a brilliant time of 19.99 seconds in the men's 200-meter preliminaries, firmly claiming the top spot in his group and smoothly advancing to the semi-finals, who gave him the qualification to enter. Without a doubt, it was the United States. The United States Anti-Doping Agency USADA announced on June 19th that they would not impose any penalties on Knighton. The reason given was that this guy ate beef contaminated with Trenbolone in a restaurant in Florida. Since he was unaware, he was not at fault. So, they determined that Knighton was an innocent lad. This is simply an extreme disrespect for the intelligence of people all over the world. Once this incident was exposed, the China Anti-Doping Agency listed many doubts. First, Trenbolone is not a common contaminant. Due to its extremely toxic side effects, many countries strictly prohibit its use in food animals. But this investigation was launched 2 months after the incident. It's astonishing that investigators were able to detect Trenbolone from different batches of beef purchased from the same restaurant. And coincidentally, this beef was eaten by Knighton. Isn't this too coincidental? Second, even if he really ate this kind of beef, after consumption and metabolism, the residue should be extremely tiny, close to the background value of the human body. But it was detected so easily. How much of this beef did he eat exactly? Or did he directly take Trenbolone as a drug? Third, during the preparation and competition periods of the Olympics, all the food consumed by athletes undergoes strict inspections. Any prohibited substances are not allowed to be added. And Trenbolone is included in the prohibited list of the World Anti-Doping Agency. Don't the Americans know this? Fourth, in recent years, hundreds of cases of positive Trenbolone have been detected globally. And the vast majority were punished according to the standard of a 4-year ban. Why did Knighton get a free pass? Most abominably, in Knighton's case, all the investigation results come from the Americans' one-sided words. This is truly absurd. However, if we dig deeper into the dark history of the United States, this matter is not surprising after all. They are repeat offenders. Pure repeat offenders. The doping problem in the American sports arena is rampant and has always been an open secret. In 2017, the American track and field athlete Gil Roberts was tested positive for doping. And the explanation he gave was incredibly that the positive doping test was caused by kissing his girlfriend. Such a ridiculous reason actually received forgiveness from the USADA. In the following years, he continued to run freely on the track and field. However, he was again detected for taking banned drugs in 2020 and was banned for 16 months. But that's not all. Just 8 months after his comeback in 2023, he was caught for doping for the 3rd time. Isn't this just messing around? In 1988, the American track and field athlete Carl Lewis tested positive for doping 3 times before the Seoul Olympics. Faced with such a result, the U.S. Olympic Committee initially took the measure of prohibiting him from participating in the competition. Lewis appealed, claiming that he had mistakenly taken the drugs without knowing whether he knew it or not. The drugs were taken anyway. It's unfair to enter the competition field. But the Olympic Committee still gave him the green light. This kind of logic of the United States is simply outrageous. According to this situation, Knighton's mistakenly eating beef is just an old trick. However, entering the Olympics by disgraceful means is one thing, and the performance on the field is another. Take Lewis, for example. In the men's 100-meter race at the Seoul Olympics, both Lewis and the Canadian athlete Ben Johnson were determined to win. Eventually, Ben Johnson won the championship with a result of 9.79 seconds. This result not only broke the world record, but it was also widely believed that this result would be difficult to surpass within 50 years. However, after the competition, in the drug test, Johnson was found to have taken banned drugs such as steroids, and the title of the world's first flyer collapsed just after 3 days. After the result was cancelled, the gold medal fell to Lewis, who originally won the silver medal with a time of 9.92 seconds. Johnson was extremely unconvinced and angrily protested after being punished. "Everyone takes drugs. Why am I the only one being punished?" Unfortunately, who would care about someone who has already been discredited? This Lewis is quite interesting. He seems to have forgotten how his excellent results were achieved. Instead, he poses as an anti-doping flag bearer, calls everywhere for strengthening the drug test system, and claims that the track and field has fallen into an unprecedented dirty situation. However, by 2003, Lewis could no longer say such words. The American Dr. Wade Exxon presented a 3,000-word report, exposing the scandal that the U.S. Olympic Committee has long covered up and connived at athletes taking drugs. It also included a list of athletes who used banned drugs, and Lewis' name was clearly on the list at first. Lewis still tried to quibble, but in the face of conclusive evidence, he could only admit "I was wrong." Another great athlete, Lance Armstrong, was even more arrogant in 1993. He won the World Championship in the World Road Cycling Championships. And since then a legend was born. However, in October 1996, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer, but he did not retire because of it. Armstrong, who overcame cancer, won the Tour de France championship for 7 consecutive years from 1999 to 2005, becoming the lone hero in the eyes of everyone. However, behind the honor, the doubts about whether he took banned drugs have never stopped. And some American media, in order to maintain the image of this hero, did everything possible. Even someone claimed cancer made his body thin, which instead enhanced his athletic ability in the mountains. The Federal Government Inspection Agency launched an investigation into Armstrong under pressure, but after no significant progress was seen, it quickly gave up in 2010. Floyd Landis, a former rider of the U.S. Postal Team, publicly admitted that he had used doping and at the same time exposed Armstrong. After multiple investigations and with conclusive evidence, Armstrong finally confessed orally. He used banned drugs in all 7 Tour de France races. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. After this incident was exposed, the U.S. Postal Team where he was located also lost its reputation. Apparently, this was a collective crime. Armstrong also publicly stated, "For the team's achievements, everyone should accept doping injections, and those who do not obey should leave immediately." Such exposure is still somewhat reserved after all, because in the entire doping chain, it is far more than just a certain athlete or a certain group. If you dig deeper, almost no one is clean according to statistics. American Olympic officials concealed more than 100 test results between 1988 and 2000. Before the Sydney Olympics, Wade Exxon, the director of the Drug Control Program of the U.S. Olympic Committee, resigned resolutely. Part of the reason was that he felt that the U.S. Olympic Committee intentionally condoned its own athletes' use of doping. Is this the true face of the so-called world's #1 sports power? Competitive sports has always been a stage for the strong. Winning disgracefully and being unwilling to lose, then it's better not to participate. The United States has always turned a blind eye to its own bad things, but it is completely different when dealing with other countries. On July 23rd, FINA, the International Swimming Federation, released a set of data. Since January of this year, The average Chinese swimmer has undergone 21 drug tests from different anti-doping organizations, while the average American swimmer has only received 6 tests, a difference of 3.5 times. The communiqué also specifically pointed out that the average number of tests per person for the Chinese swimming team ranks first in the world at the post-game press conference. Qin Haiyang frankly said, "I can't even count how many times I've been tested. Anyway, I'm often woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning for tests. This does have a certain impact on our entire preparation rhythm." In addition to increasing the number of tests for Chinese athletes, they also suppress China in terms of public opinion. Just on the eve of the opening of the Paris Olympics, the FBI Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice of the United States unreasonably launched an investigation into the doping contamination incident of Chinese swimmers. Clearly, these athletes have proved their innocence, and the World Anti-Doping Agency WADA has also recognized the investigation results. However, some American media still published many false reports and disclosed the personal information of these athletes. Such excessive actions are obviously suspected of being illegal. Even WADA couldn't stand it and immediately stated that these reports are misleading and potentially defamatory. Seeing that the conspiracy failed, the United States got anxious and accused WADA of favoring China and demanded sanctions against Chinese athletes. Why target China like this? Just because their consistent style is, whoever is powerful, they investigate according to this logic. The United States has always led the Olympic medal table. Shouldn't these medals be checked one by one to see if they are clean? Unfortunately, WADA President Banka said at a recent meeting, American athletes are the group of athletes in the world who receive the fewest doping tests. 90% of American athletes, including professional and college sports athletes, have not complied with the relevant regulations of WADA. What is meant by being strict with others, but lenient with oneself? The United States has completely understood it among the clauses related to doping. There is a relatively special one called doping exemption. It means that when certain athletes are troubled by injuries and diseases and indeed need to use substances on the prohibited list, they can apply according to relevant regulations and can use them after approval. But there is a standard that the drug treatment cannot improve the athlete's performance, but is only to restore the athlete's body to a normal state. What kind of state can be called a normal state? There is a lot of trickery in this. Data shows that in 2015, American athletes submitted a total of 653 exemption applications, among which 402 were approved. The application approval rate was as high as 61%. In the same year, only 20 people passed in Russia, and the number of applicants in China was even more pitiful. In 2016, the Russian hacker group Fancy Bear successfully invaded the database of WADA and stole a large number of top-secret materials. The exposed data was astonishing. In the Rio Olympics that year, more than 70% of the U.S. swimming team and more than 74% of the U.S. track and field team obtained exemptions for the use of doping. The reasons they applied for were mostly heart diseases and asthma. Put in quip. Since they are all ill, it would be more appropriate to directly participate in the Paralympics, as is well known. Swimming and track and field events of the United States are traditional strengths. With such associations, it is really terrifying to think deeply, and these data are only those on record. If we include those in the gray area, we have sufficient reasons to believe that almost everyone in the U.S. sports arena is sick, and everyone can obtain an exemption. Patients in other countries know to go to the hospital when they are sick, but only patients in the United States run to the sports field, with a unique style, of course. If viewed from another perspective, everyone in the U.S. sports arena is disabled, but determined, which can be called a model of inspiration. Such an old U.S. It's really a pity not to give it a good name of sick man of North America. There are two sets of rules in the sports world. One belongs to the United States, and the other belongs to other countries, although the World Anti-Doping Agency bears the name World. What the United States is best at is trampling the world underfoot. In 2020, the U.S. Congress unanimously passed the Rodchenkov v. Anti-Doping Act. The core of this act lies in its extraterritorial jurisdiction, meaning that the United States can conduct independent judicial investigations and criminal penalties for anti-doping incidents abroad. In short, the United States can do whatever it wants. And WADA and the International Olympic Committee have no choice but to tolerate it. The United States has already rotted to the core, but it always imposes long-arm jurisdiction on other countries in the posture of an international police. And its behavior is truly ugly. However, even though the Rodchenkov v. Anti-Doping Act has come into effect, what about its effect? As of now, there are no public reports indicating that this act has been applied in actual cases. No one has the obligation to indulge bullies. Besides, everyone knows the true face of the United States. Doping has always been an unavoidable topic in the sports world for individuals. Medals can not only bring great reputation, but also substantial economic benefits at a higher level. The number of medals is a manifestation of a country's comprehensive strength. For a country like the United States, which is good at being a troublemaker to seek political capital, it is even more persistent about winning or losing. People's thirst for fame and fortune is destined that doping on the field will not disappear, but will only become more concealed. This is not only a problem for the United States, but also a problem faced by the entire world. The Olympic Games, held once every 4 years, still attract global attention to this day. It is not only a feast of sports, but also because the Olympic spirit that has been passed down for thousands of years is still captivating. People will always respect the sweat and tears of athletes on the field. But phenomena like American swimmers who instantly turn into purple sweet potato essence as soon as the competition begins are truly disgusting. In the final analysis, the Olympic arena challenges the limits of human physical fitness, technology and will, rather than the bottom line of morality.